Welcome. My name is Lindsay Lehr. I'm leader of PCMI. And we hold these once a month coffee chats as a way to provide a space for mutual learning, sharing insights, looking at global trends in the payments business with a focus on Latin America, but we're always and increasingly looking to other global regions to inform what we're seeing in the Americas. And so just a couple of quick guidelines to have a successful session. If we go on to the next slide, if you're new here, just keep in mind, this is not a webinar, okay? We do have content to share, but this is meant to be a participatory session. So you'll see many of the usual suspects jumping in, asking questions, making comments, and we really welcome that. We want you to feel that you can spontaneously jump in, ask a question, or share an insight or an anecdote, or share your own perspective. That's what really makes this space special, is the participation from all of you. So we'd love to have your camera on. Feel free to jump in. You can raise your hand. You can put a comment in the chat. You could just jump in where you feel it's appropriate. All right, and I will do my best to field our presentation and the comments and the questions. All right, so if we go ahead, I'm really so excited to welcome Gustavo Bresler. Welcome, Gustavo, from Iniciador, who will help us understand some of the trends taking place with Pix in Brazil, new features being rolled out, open finance, and kind of this very pivotal and exciting moment that we're experiencing in Brazil, with all of the changes that the central bank and others are taking advantage of. So we're going to have some content from Gustavo, and I expect kind of a lively, interesting conversation. So Gustavo, welcome. It's great to meet you officially. And tell us about yourself and about Iniciador.
Hi, Lindsay. Thank you for having me here as well. Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining in. I'm Gustavo, responsible for operations here in Iniciador. We are an infrastructure as a service, a technical service provider for anyone willing to join open finance in Brazil, being it a regulated entity or not. We support platforms to enable them to have payments and data access connectivity to the open finance data as well. And also all the RegTech, the regulatory technical compliance needed for regulated entities. We're happy to be here to discuss a little bit of the new Pix features enabled via Open Finance and via the Pix rails as well during this year. There's a major upgrade on Pix, and I think will change the way we have a relationship with our banks here in Brazil. And it's a pleasure to be here. I've been in open finance since before the open finance regulation, supporting the consulting regulation opened by the central bank since 2019, and been chiming in my inputs since then, also supporting the World Bank in their consulting efforts with other countries regarding open finance implementation as well.
Excellent. Well, sounds like we're in for a treat. So thank you, Gustavo. And you have a number of slides to share. So I'll just hand it over to you. And I'll kind of, as we go, I'm very curious. So I'll be asking you some questions. And the audience will jump in as well.
Let me see if it goes. Okay, is everyone seeing my screen?
Yeah.
That's great. Please, everyone, feel free to interrupt me at any time. As Lindsay have told us in advance, this is a chat, so please feel free to join in and ask questions and ask for more details on the events. We have a guy here to drive our conversation. So just a little bit to show how is the current status on Pix and open finance here in Brazil at the moment, what's going on, the differences between payments through the traditional Pix rails and through the new rails opened by open finance, the new Pix features enabled, Pix Pay by Bank, Recurring Pix, Programmable Pix, Biometric or Contactless Pix, and we have cheat sheet, so you can see all the differences, a comparison of all different kinds of Pix and traditional methods as well. The regulatory roadmap, where we're going, what's in place for the evolution of both Pix and the open finance regulation. Some impacts and market shifts that we expect with these new features being enabled, and a few use cases and business opportunities that we see, more specifically on the programmability of Pix, but also the other features as well. So let's jump in. Just a quick intro. So as Iniciador, we are supporting regulated entities and platforms by enabling payments and data aggregation, data sharing capabilities for product innovation, reducing their technical and regulatory barriers, supporting companies and fintechs that doesn't have a regulated license here in Brazil, as we are a licensed PIS, Payment Initiation Service Provider, ITP, as we say here, and providing infrastructure for payment initiation, aggregation, and all the other compliance tech. So Pix has been has had a stellar growth in the last few years. We have at the moment around 5.4 billion Pix transactions per month. It's been growing online payments about 50% year over year. About 30% of all online payments are already made by Pix. And according to data reported by WorldPay, it is expected that we have this number around 50% by 2027, with almost 30-year growth overall. And on offline payments, it's still not much convenience. It's one of the aspects that the central bank expects to change with contactless Pix. At the moment, we see around 18% of offline payments made by Pix. Around all the contactless payments possible on POS in Brazil, about 75% is made by card, by plastic, and 25% made on cards being made by wallets, digital wallets, be it Apple Wallet, Apple Pay, or Google Pay, Samsung Pay, all the other wallets as well. And we expect Pix to grow as well, about 41% of the market share by 2027. And the forecast that we do here internally, we expect an average of 16 billion transactions per month on that given year. That will be around 192 billion transactions per year. So quite a growth from what we have now, about triple the size of the average transactions that we have by month at the moment. And when we're talking about open finance, Brazil has become the global benchmark in open finance. About 16% of the Brazilian population has already shared an account through open finance. There are about 50 million accounts currently sharing data via open finance, and we have a pool of around 1 billion accounts that represent 95% of all Brazilians with a financial relationship in the banks connected, available through open finance, that are still being able to be connected. And why we bring open finance to this conversation is because open finance is the infrastructure that is being leveraged, the interoperability, the connectivity between banks to make payments easier and to add new features on top of the Pix rails. Open finance is most of all a connectivity standard. So it started with data, connecting data. It then went through to connect payments and make Pix payments available without the necessity of a QR code or a copy and paste code. And now we're moving to new features on top of Pix and opening up a new venture on open finance of financial products standards. So starting next year, we'll start to see the standards for portability of credit, wages, and also investments becoming a new API that any institution in Brazil could use to have access to the same products and product portability, and then go into next step of a credit marketplace where you can solicit or ask for credit from different institutions using the same APIs and have them all connected. So open finance overall is just a standard. It's supposed to be open, but it's not as open because you have to be a participant institution to join. But it's an open standard as in open source that every institution in Brazil has to follow it. It's mostly mandatory for most of the features we're talking here. Sometimes for the biggest pool of banks and then open to the whole financial system. Sometimes it's already mandatory for everyone. So
Gustavo,
this
can I
is,
ask a question here? I
yes,
want to
please.
slow down for a moment because I think the question of sharing data is so tricky in many ways. So I just want to ask the audience, whether you're Brazilian or live anywhere else, can you guys all raise your hand using the little part if you know how to do that? If you're aware that you have shared your data with a financial institution before. Have you guys done this? And you can raise your hand. Yeah, people are doing it. Great. I'm even trying to figure out how to do it myself. But if you've done this, either do it on the screen or, okay, so we've got, looks like a minority of folks. And I'm trying to see who answered here. Okay, we've got some Brazilians. I know I have here in the US, and I find myself increasingly, as I'm on the internet, I'm finding increasing moments to connect my bank account to a certain platform, and it's almost always via Plaid, right? The little box pops up with the Plaid logo. So I'm finding increasing opportunity to do that. And Gustavo or any other Brazilian in the room, what is the typical, do you think consumers know what this is or know what this means? 16% of Brazil's population, that's double the last statistic I saw about a year ago. So we see that this is growing. But Gustavo, can you share what do you think consumers' experience of this is? And are they understanding what it is? Do they know what the benefit is of sharing their data?
When an institution is firstly asking for users to share their data, they have an egg and chicken problem. So you need the data to improve your products and to make better models that you will use to either have a better credit access data model where you have all the standard data to analyze. But if you don't have the data, you cannot improve your current model. And if you don't have the benefit to give to the user, you don't have the reason to ask for their data. So we're just reaching a threshold where banks now have sufficient data to improve their products. And we've seen on the latest report by the central bank, huge gains shared by the banks that either providing credit in the numbers of billions that they have given access to credit. We have Mercado Pago, for example, that has shown significant growth the past weeks that we've seen, and mostly through financial services, and now all their credit is supported by open finance data. Every credit that they give now has to have an open finance data sharing consent before, so they can use this data to analyze it and decide if they want to give credit or not. And we've seen this through all the financial system. There's been a learning curve on how to use this data. And we've gone through a consent that was at first restricted to a year, and the user had to give another data sharing consent if they wanted to. And we've moved to perpetual or permanent data sharing agreement where the user doesn't have to bother if they don't want to, if they want to share again the data, but they can clearly cancel or revoke that consent anytime they want. And with the new Pix features that we're about to see, we've seen a lot of retail banks in Brazil implementing financial personal finance managers, so PFMs inside their bank apps as an excuse at first, but then as a ways to have all the users to connect their account to that bank app. And at first, the personal finance manager was a read-only suite, so you could only see data from other banks, but you could not move them. And right now, with Pix Inteligente, which is the programmable side of Pix, or in the UK, also known as account sweeping, you can move money between all of your accounts on the same interface. And this is an important change. This is an important shift that we're starting to see to take place, because at first banks would use the custody of your money, of your values, as an indicator that they were the main bank that you would use whenever you wanted financial services or financial products, or you wanted access to credit or installments or financing a vehicle or a home. And now, if you can connect and move all your accounts from a third-party interface, a competitor's bank app, this is starting to change, because it doesn't matter where your money is. You can see and move them in the interface that suits you better, that better supports your financial management overall, and you'll be able to get specific financial product recommendations from that interface. And if I'm not accessing my bank apps anymore, say my traditional bank, they don't have the channel to sell me what they usually would want to sell. So this is a bit of the moment that we're going through at the moment.
Okay, fantastic.
And as other use cases, we've seen credit analysis, onboarding as well. So when we're talking about onboarding, we have all the registry data from users, from their IDs, addresses, email accounts. We have the data on their specific assets, how much of assets do they have, how many accounts do they hold in that bank, what kind of financial products did they hire in that bank. So this is all registry data that is also being used to support faster onboarding on either new institutions when the user wants to open a new account on a new bank, or for fintechs and insurance companies and credit companies, financing companies in Brazil as well. So there's a lot of use cases being used and targeted at the moment, mostly credit analysis, onboarding, and portability of different financial products as well.
Okay. So, Cesar, I saw that you raised your hand, that you had shared your data. I'm just curious, from a purely consumer standpoint, now, of course, you're a very educated consumer in payments, and anyone else can jump into this, but from a consumer perspective, have you seen these use cases come to life for you so far? Or what's the experience like?
Yeah, I think it's just starting, Lindsay. What I've seen is that many banks and fintechs have the incentive to ask for consent. Not all of them have the ability to work on the data, as consumers expect, and even themselves expect. So I think it's a first step. It will be a trade-off, right? Like, people will be able to share, will be more willing to share their personal data if they see advantage of doing that. If they don't, I think they just, there's no use case for that. But I think we'll be like, I remember in Brazil, probably like 5-10 years ago, you'd walk into a branch and you'd ask for a loan, and your manager would ask you for something else, right? You're, oh, I can help you with the loan, but perhaps you can help me with like those direct debit accounts, or direct debit bills, or you can, do like this, like small investment to help me with my goals. And I think that has been that the evolution of that might be exchanging your personal data for something else, right? So you might be more likely to get a loan from a bank if you're able to do that. Many are claiming to do that already. So, but I think it's just starting.
Okay, got it.
I have the same feeling here. We have not seen the full use and implementation of use cases, but we're starting to see them being having new features and having new benefit propositions for users overall.
Okay.
I have a quick question,
Continue.
if you don't mind.
Yeah, sure.
Are we talking predominantly about pushing data or pulling data?
Predominantly pulling data. Sorry, pushing, because in Brazil it's to push is the contrary of push. So pushing data, it will be so if you're a financial institution, say Nubank, and you have a connected account from someone from Itaú, you will every time have to request the information from the bank during the period of that consent. So I, as a user, gave a consent to Nubank to have access to all my information made available through Open Finance on Itaú. Nubank has to make API requests every time they want an updated version of this information. During the period of my consent, they can do that as long as the consent is active. So this goes for registry data, account data, where you have all the balances, all the transactions, credit card data as well. You have all the transactions, you have the invoices, all the installments, credit operations, where you have financings, different types of credit made available through Open Finance, investments as well, and now currency exchange operations as well are made available to share. So every time Nubank wants an updated version of this information, they have to request. Going through, we'll see a little bit on the roadmap evolution. Open Finance is implementing notifications for data changes. So say every time my balance change in my Itaú account, Nubank will receive a webhook notification that my balance has changed. This is currently under implementation. There's a regulatory deadline for 2026, but we do hope that by next year we already have something specifically on balance changes. So Nubank will have a notification and know when a balance has changed, because we know that today about 75% of all the API calls made through Open Finance to refresh the data that an institution already have returns the same data. So it's 75% inefficient as a system. Every time you ask for data, 75% returns the same thing. So and this also overhauls the system. We have operational limits to make API calls. So it is expected that with webhook notifications, those will change. And we can also make new products available to the public, knowing that they went into overdraft, for example, in their other accounts, or knowing that something happened in their other accounts, and we can make a product to program to support them in something that they wanted to be automatic.
Okay, it sounds like it's a pull-based system where you're pulling data from the system of record, but it also sounds like you're trying to transition into a push data system, because pull data is always going to be inefficient. And as you said, 95% maybe of data that's pulled is not changed from the previous time. Whereas if it's pushed, then you just push the data whenever it changes. So it's a lot more efficient if you do it as a push level. So it sounds like there's a transition going on.
That is correct.
Yeah, and I think an important comparison, especially Lindsay, if we're talking about like Plate, for example. I know that Plate has some bilateral agreements with the major institutions in the US, but you do need to share your login and password, right? To use that. And for some institutions, they might even do like screen scraping, just like getting into your account and pulling information. So this, in comparison to Open Finance, this is different, right? Open Finance, it's a standard that was created by the central bank. So all the institutions will share the data within the same format, and through APIs. So I think as we scale, we're gonna see a lot more efficiency in this way than kind of like the private closed loop scenes that we have seen worldwide.
Yeah, that's interesting, because so Plaid has a statistic, right, that, have connected their bank account to Plaid. They've gone through that, and 1 in 3. So they have access potentially to 33% of consumers in the US, compared to 16% of Brazil's population now. But to your point, it's not consistent. It's one player. It's not being rolled out. They're going to have problems scaling that. Whereas maybe Brazil it's more of an industry-wide effort. So interesting different approaches to this.
It is, and while the US is market driven by what Plaid more specifically started doing, and then we have other players as well. In Brazil, it is mandatory. So sometimes what is a market opportunity in the US, as in the connections that you have and the bilateral agreements that you have with the banks, it's not the same market opportunity as we have in Brazil, even though infrastructure might be hard to deploy, specifically the compliance infrastructure. The banks have to connect their internal APIs and make them the data available for external parties through a standard that is shared. We do have an easier way of making available analytical solutions that we use this data to provide better financial models,
which will eventually
analytical
create more
models
ubiquity, right? So that's interesting.
This is a far better model than the screen scraping, which I believe was started by a company called Yodlee around 25 years ago, and the banks in this country hated them for doing it. But you had to give Yodlee your ID and password, and this is like a whole other company. It's like, I don't trust you necessarily yet. And so having to do that is a real security issue for people. But if it's required by law and you have a centralized system that is being monitored, that is facilitating it, and it's by authorization only, that's a far better way of doing it. So I like this.
And this has been going great. One of the things that we've learned from the United Kingdom implementation is that the UX must be mandatory as well. So in the UK, they have a difficulty in rising conversion rates in the beginning, because when you redirect to the bank, every bank had a different approach on how they would authenticate and show their users the possibility of sharing their data. So the regular flow is, I'm on Nubank, for example, and I want to share data from Itaú. So I'll start on Nubank, this data sharing agreement. I will be redirected to the Itaú app. I will authenticate in the Itaú app in the same way that I do. So if I have, for example, my Face ID already integrated, it has to accept my regular authentication form. So I will use the Face ID in this case, and already be shown a screen that this is the data you're agreeing to share. Do you consent in sharing? Yes, and then I'm redirected back. So all this user experience is mandatory. We have the complete guide of user experience in the Open Finance ecosystem for both data sharing and for payments. And we've learned this from the UK implementation as something that they tried to change afterwards, and it was a bit more difficult. So we already started with this learning, and this is shown in the adoption as well. So the UK is about 6 years since their data sharing was implemented, and they were about between 11 and 13% of the adoption from the whole population. So in Brazil, we have a steeper acceleration curve in the moment, and we are already seeing the benefits in the new use cases being presented by the banks.
Well, let's continue, Gustavo. I'm very curious. This is, in the roadmap and how that will play out in the market.
You've probably already seen how a Pix payment is done in Brazil through the traditional Pix rails. So you have a QR code, or you copy paste the specific code, and you look for your bank app, and then you paste that code on your bank app, or you use the bank app camera to read the QR code. And this has been the available methods for the Brazilian population. And with the introduction of Open Finance, what began at first is the pay by app journey. So the regular account-to-account payments that you see on other places as well, where you confirm that you want to pay with a Pix, pay by bank or pay by app. You select your bank, and then you redirect it to your bank to approve the payment, and you redirect it back to the place where you were when you started. And the differences is that when you have a traditional Pix rails, it is always the payment is always being initiated by the receiver, the institution that holds the account of the person who is receiving that transaction. Or if you have the Pix key of the receiver, you can initiate it on your side as a payer. While in the Open Finance initiation, we have this figure of the intermediary, that is the payment initiation service provider. As we call here in Portuguese, it's ITP, it's Iniciador de Transação de Pagamento. And they will be the intermediary, meaning that every payee, every receiver, they can set different accounts for their payments. So if they don't want to offer this Pix rails through their traditional bank, which hold their accounts, they can select any other account that they have to be able to receive the payments. And specifically for payments, we already have webhooks implemented. So any payments going through the Open Finance platform, you would be notified both as an intermediary and both as the receiver if that payment went through, or if it was rejected by a lack of funds or by an issue in the infrastructure and so on. And this makes it a much better solution, specifically for marketplaces and platforms that before they couldn't know for sure if the Pix has went through. So if I have a platform and I want to offer Pix payments, I have to have an institution or a banking as a service to provide to me the transactions that went through, so I can confirm that that payment through Pix is completed, and I can notify all the different parties involved. And now with payment initiation through Open Finance, there's no need to hold the account to verify the balance of every and each payment for you to know that the balance has changed or the payment went through. Please, Gerardo.
Gerardo, you're on mute if you're speaking. Okay, well, maybe he'll chime
Yeah, I was on
in.
mute. Sorry. I was just sorry. Thank you very much. Yes, Antonio, thank you very much. I think that part is very important. How is going to be the security point of view in the PSP environment? Because I saw now in England, UK, has a huge issue with some fraud control about, in the process for the verification with the PSP, because they start creating some push payment by third parties. They enable very complicated situation with the fraud control today. My question is, in Brazil, how can it be the security point to guarantee the tokenization process of security customer identification? How is the process to enable to avoid somebody in the middle, guys, to pay the process? Just as a question to see how it's going to be moved forward in this market, because Brazil is very sensible market to the fraud control process. very,
you're correct.
very important.
So we have different security protocols for the different payment methods. Whenever you're using your app to approve the payment, you have to log in to your bank every time. So the same authentication that the bank already has in place is the one you're going to use to approve the payment. When we go to different payment possibilities where you have permanent or persistent authorization, where one authorization can be made to make different payments. We have different security protocols. When we're talking about recurring Pix that we'll see next, all payments are scheduled, and they're scheduled at the same time with the user bank authorization as well. When we're talking about smart Pix, it's account sweeping. We're only talking about transactions between the same owner accounts. That gives not a lot of incentive for it to be used as a fraudulent from the fraudulent perspective, because the user, if the fraudster, if they have access to an account, they could just Pix the money to a third party and not use this specific feature. And when we're talking about contactless or biometric Pix that we'll see in the next slides, you have a FIDO2 component. It's the same international protocol used by every technology company in the world, where you have a device ID and you have a device binding that can be signed and verified by every party involved if that is the same device, along with all the security data that you get from that device. So you get the data of the MAC address of the device, you get the data of where they're connected, their GPS localization, if they are connected to the Wi-Fi system that they used to be, and all this information is sent to the bank. So the payer's bank have the same information they would have as if the user was using their app, their native application as well, so they can make the decision to approve the payment or see if there's something different in there that they would like an extra confirmation for that specific payment. So there are different specific security components, and it's all made sure that the bank either has the same capabilities as they would have in their native app to approve the payment, to authorize the payment, and also to not encourage frauds to be used on the Open Finance platform as well. And when we're talking about fraud in Brazil, is always something to have in mind as well. For example, when you use a Pix key, at first you could just use your tax ID or CPF to validate and get this. You use the Pix key and you get the CPF of every user. And Pix started to mask all the CPFs from users, so you don't get this information when you query a Pix key, for example. And the same for Open Finance. You cannot initiate a payment without the CPF, and you'll be in that specific interface be redirected to your bank. So you cannot query any CPF in Brazil to know if they have a bank account, if they have a bank account on a specific bank, or to initiate a payment for them. These are all thought through, so you don't have someone receiving tens of thousands of SMS or WhatsApp notifications that someone's starting a payment with their number. So this has been thought when we were starting Open Finance as well. Hope this answered your questions, but
yeah, thank you very much. Very, very specific. I appreciate it a lot. Thank you.
So Gustavo, I have a question here. I see that it's funny that we're already talking about traditional Pix. But I see, you have available methods under traditional and different ones under Open Finance, so including recurring Pix, smart Pix. So does that mean that in order to use recurring Pix or smart Pix, which I guess we're going to go into, you have to be, as a consumer, you have to have shared your data in those transactions?
Not necessarily. We have different authorization consents in Open Finance. Data sharing consents are one, and payment consents are another. Every consent is specific to the purpose of what you're doing. So if you want to share data from Itaú to Nubank for just investment data, this is one consent. If you want to share other scopes of data, it's another consent. And if you want to start a payment from bank A to bank B, that's another consent. And they're not necessarily related, but they could be used as well in conjunction, in correlation to each other, specifically when we're talking about programmable payments. So I could see if my data changed in a bank, for example, if I went into overdraft into bank A and send available money from bank B to bank A automatically as well. So we can have use cases using different kinds of consents, but they're not necessary for each other, as they're all standalone authorizations.
Okay, got it.
I think we'll have a few questions on the available methods. So I'll just hover through most of them, and we can compare them and go into details in the end. So just to make sure that we cover all the possible payment methods. So in a traditional Pix checkout, you would get the QR code, so you could use another device to read the QR code and finish the payment, or you could copy and paste and look for your bank, and now you have the possibility to pay with the app. If you have a Brazilian account, feel free to read the QR code on top, and you can make a donation to a charity of your choice and see how this flow works in real time. I will select, after I choose to pay by app, I will select my bank. In this case, I selected Nubank. We have all the available banks that are obligatory participants in Pix. They are also mandatory to allow for payment initiation through Open Finance as well. So I'll select Nubank. I will have the value confirmation. In this moment, I'm talking to Nubank. Nubank is talking back to me to give me a redirect URL that I can use to also switch to their bank app.
So just to clarify, Gustavo, on that last slide, so copy the Pix code is the traditional copy paste. I redirect from my bank, right? Or pay by app is just the payment initiation option where it's more seamless through. I then select the app that I want to pay.
That's correct.
Okay, got it.
The QR code and the copy paste Pix code, they're all made available by the traditional Pix rails, while the pay by app is made available by the Open Finance connections.
Okay, got it. Cool.
For this method, I have to have the tax ID or the CPF of the user first. And this I will send to the bank, and the bank will authenticate if that is the same user ID that the user is using to log on their account. So if I provide here a different CPF or tax ID, and from the one that I log in to my Nubank account, Nubank will not make the payment authorized. The payment will not go through because there are different parties. So this is very interesting as well, because when we're talking about identifiable payments, you can always make sure that the payment made came from the same account of the person who registered in your application or website. When we're talking about investments, for example, that you have to identify all the money that went through your investment account is specifically from that person who registered with you. This is an extra feature as well that can be used to determine that this is the same user, because I sent their tax ID, I validated first their tax ID here, and I sent to the bank, and the bank approved the payment. So the bank also confirmed to me that this is the same person. The account that sent me the money has the same tax ID with it. And then when I'm redirected to my bank, I'll log in the same way that I usually do. If I already have my biometrics in place, I can just do the biometrics. I will be received already with the screen to authorize the payment. So I can see my account balance. I can see to whoever I'm paying the payment value. I can see the payment initiator who is intermediating the payment, and the account details of the payee of the receiving account. So if I authorize, I'll be redirected back to where I were before, and the payment will be confirmed through the Open Finance webhook notifications as well. I get, as a payment initiator, every status saying that the payer's bank has already sent the money through the Pix arrangement. The Pix arrangement has contacted the payee's bank. The payee's bank has received the value, and the payment has been settled. And this every status of this chain, I'm being notified, and I can also notify the other intermediaries here, be it a marketplace, a platform, or any other application that's receiving the payment.
Okay, I have a question, and the concerning aspect is on the redirects part of it. So you're being redirected to your bank from where? I'm not familiar with Pix, so I've never used it. So I may be asking obvious questions here. So you get a redirect to your bank from what? From an app?
From wherever you are. If you are on a desktop browser, you have the option to continue the payment authorization.
What page, though? The merchant's page?
The merchant's page for the checkout page, or
the checkout, because that is a major security concern for me. And the reason is, and this is something I looked at a few years ago, let's say you're on a merchant that is a fraudulent merchant, and you go, oh, okay, well, I want to pay with Pix, redirect to your bank, and it looks like your bank's login page, but it isn't. Now, what are you going to do? You're going to log in. Now that fraudulent bank page now has all information it needs to log in as you. That's a concern when you do redirects. It's like, if it was from a Pix app, that's a different story, because you know who they are. But a merchant is a merchant. You don't know who they are. So
if you are on your mobile phone, you will always be redirected to your bank app.
See, that's safe. No problem with that at all, because then you've now got your bank app is now running. You know what that is. You can log in because you have direct communication with your bank app. You didn't go through a redirect. You had an initiator start up your bank app now. But now you have a direct communication. There wasn't a redirect so much. Maybe there's a slight language difference here. So as to what redirect is, if it's the bank app, no problem at all. If it's the bank web page, you got to know where it came from.
Yes, mostly Brazilians at the moment, they don't log in their banks in the browser anymore. They all log through the bank apps, because the browsing process to log in is very complicated. You either have to install a Guardian on your PC, a foreign software to transmit the security data to your bank, or you have to get a code from your mobile app as well. So it's usually not very user-friendly to log in on your browser. And this makes that mostly of these payments, they will be even started on the desktop browser here, they will be finished on the mobile device and their mobile app. The banks have the possibility with client background authentication, CIBA, to send a push notification, but it's not implemented yet in Brazil for any use at the current moment, but you have the option to make the same payment that we see with Pix with the QR code. So Nubank, for example, they don't have a browser bank environment. You cannot access Nubank on your browser. You have to access it through the bank app in your mobile device. So they will show you a QR code that you can read with your phone camera and continue the payment on the mobile device and Nubank's mobile app. This doesn't change. Every bank has the possibility to make how they want to authenticate their customers, being it that is the same way that customers already use to authenticate, but it also doesn't support the customer experience when we're talking about hybrid flows, because you would do the same thing that you would already do with the Pix Rails, that is reading a QR code. So mostly of the applications that we've seen so far, they're being used on mobile devices and mobile applications. But you are correct. Phishing has been a big problem everywhere. Everybody here probably receives emails with PDFs there you need to pay that you don't really need to, asking for your bank details. And this is not a common issue for open finance, but yes, it could be used when you're talking about getting the user details. This is why we, differently from scraping, open finance never asks for user details on third-party interfaces that are not your banks.
Yeah, sorry if I went on a different direction. I've written national and international data security standards for the payment industry. So I am always looking at things and going, how could I break this? So I always go there. So apologies for that.
So Gustavo, we have just about 5 minutes left. So I want to make sure you get a chance to cover what you think is most important here. So if there's anything that you want to jump to, please feel free.
Okay. Apologize for all the monologue, but just to showcase a little bit the new features. So we have recurring Pix, in Portuguese Pix recorrente, where you were able to schedule up to 60 payments in a period of 2 years, 24 months, and they're all done at the same time. So in this same process that I go to my bank and I can approve up to 60 payments, fixed values, to a different receiver. And this could be used for recurring billing, for monthly fee charges, subscriptions, installments, plans, investments as well. So every month I have an investment of a fixed value. And it's usually way cheaper than a bank slip. That's the traditional method used in Brazil, and already way cheaper than a credit card, with the limitations that it is a fixed value and the user has to schedule all the payments at once. You, as a receiver, also is notified whenever whenever payments are scheduled, completed, canceled by the user. The user can cancel those payment schedules as well, or rejected either by lack of funds or by lack of Pix limit.
Is this live now, recurring, or isn't it set to launch this month? Or
this is live since April. Since April, it's already live.
Okay.
We haven't seen many use cases yet, but we're starting to see them at the moment. And Nubank already does this on their side, as called Pix Programado, where you can use this, but only for Nubank accounts. And when we're talking about payment initiation, you can set up for any account.
And a question from Juan, is recurring Pix only for fixed amounts, or can it also work with variable amounts?
At first, only for fixed amounts. You have to know every amount beforehand because you're scheduling them all at the moment of the authorization.
Got it.
This is the limitation. Yes.
I see. Okay. So still a lot of work to optimize, but it's getting started.
Yes. There are different methods for different use cases. So what we'll see with Pix Automático is probably what is expected from variable recurring payments. So it's direct debit made on top of Pix, and this is about to be. It was supposed to be released by the end of this year, and it got delayed to next year. But we'll get to that. I'm just jumping forward here.
So just one quick second. Everyone, I know we're coming up on the hour. We'll go a few minutes over because I think there's some very interesting content here, but I just want to take a quick moment. If you have to sign off, thanks for joining. We'll be back on October 7th, so bookmark that date. And please feel free to find Gustavo on LinkedIn. And this will be on YouTube, where you can find his contact information, and then this whole recording will be published for you. Okay, so thank you everyone for joining, and Gustavo will just take a couple more minutes as long as you're available to cover some of these new features that are very exciting.
Thank you everyone who has to leave as well, and I'm sorry for the delay, but we'll keep going here as long as people are still here. So another feature that's already available and being implemented more throughout the financial system is the Smart Pix, or Pix Inteligente, as called in Brazil, or account sweeping as it is called in the UK. And it's very interesting because it's this first programmatic layer on top of Pix. You can use rules and set up those rules with the user and make instant transactions and automatic transactions whenever those rules are met. So you can have complex business logics. Say I have a payment system and I manage and I have data consent to see all the data of the accounts of my user in different banks, and I can see if they went into overdraft into a bank account on bank A, and if they have available values on bank B, and I can funnel the money and send directly from bank B to bank A without an intermediary account, the money to cover the debt, so they don't be into overdraft anymore. I can see if they have future transactions that are already scheduled and make the funds available so they don't have to go into overdraft as well. So these are all programmable possibilities. They're being made between account-to-account payments. Same account, the owner must be the same, so the same tax ID for every account. When we are talking about business accounts, it's also available, and it works between the same CNPJs here in Brazil, CNPJ, which is the tax ID for business entities as well. And this is what will enable personal finance managers to not only read the data and show the data that the user have on all their finances, but also move the funds between their accounts as well and make it as smart as possible, also providing them with automatic behaviors that they want to set up and already leave them set up. So say whenever I get a fund on my account, I want to get 10% of those funds and funnel them to my investment accounts. I could do that and leave that preset on my account as well through Smart Pix and have all this customization at hand. This is the video where it's the first use case that we've seen of Smart Pix. This is powered by Iniciador as well in a startup called No. They have accounts for couples that both couples can share their money there and see for what they're using their money for on householding payments. So here they'll select the banks. At first it was first used with these 5 banks in Brazil. Select Mercado Pago. You can set limits, so limits for transactions, limits for during some period. So I only give this authorization to No for 1,000 reais per transaction and 3,000 reais per day. I can make maximum limits per week, per month, per authorization, and also limit the quantity of transactions as well. And this is mandatory. Every user will have the ability to edit those maximum limits as well whenever they are authorizing Smart Pix. And they're redirected to their bank app, in this case, Mercado Pago. They'll have, they will confirm for who they're giving the authorization, all the limits that they have set up there. They'll do their regular confirmation. And they're redirected back to the app or the service that they were before. In this case, they're redirected back to the NO app. And it's all right, the bank is connected. And now the use case that NO is using is to make instant top-ups, instant cash-in deposits in their account. So I already have my Mercado Pago account connected here, and I will deposit R$1. They're verifying the process, and when I update the app, the R$1 is already there via Pix, via Smart Pix, and I don't have to be redirected back to my bank on every next transaction that I make from my Mercado Pago account to the NO account as well. Juan has a question.
So let's take one question, and then we'll have to sign off for the day. But I am curious.
Sorry.
Juan, please go ahead.
Is this expected to be only for P2P transactions, or business are supposed to be, or how much the banks are going to be the ones really able to decide how much they enable this kind of service? Because obviously sweeping accounts and taking money instantly from one place to another, it can pose different implications for many different participants, etc. No? Thanks.
This is mandatory in Brazil for everyone who has an account able to make Pix, be it a deposit account or a payment account. If this account is, if this bank or conglomerate is a participant on Pix, they have to accept this kind of payments. It's mandatory by regulation. It's limited to work on only between same owner accounts. So I can only move through Smart Pix money from my account to my account, either on the same bank or a different bank.
Okay, thanks.
No problem.
All right. Well, Gustavo, I'm afraid we do have to wrap up, but I love seeing these demos and seeing what Iniciador is doing behind the scenes. And it's kind of, I think, triggering the imagination for what could come, and as this develops and becomes more consolidated. And I would love, even in a year from now or 6 months, to check back in and see what has developed, right? And how this is impacting people's lives and companies. I know we didn't get a lot to your content, but very interesting engagement and questions and conversations. So thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Lindsay, again. I was a bit too optimistic on the content here, but please feel free to share with everyone who participated here all the slides, and make myself available for further questioning as well.
Terrific.
Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you, everyone. Again, October 7th, and I'm very excited to announce that it's been a long time coming, but having our dear friend Nick Brown present. You guys know Nick from his very insightful comments, and we'll finally get to hear what Nick has been up to in his business and getting an update directly from him. So please join us in about a month. We'll see you guys then. Thank you, and we'll be in touch.